Billahi Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadr ve yassir li emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yefkahu kavli. Selamünaleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuh. Inshallah we will continue with a last indication of the 13th flash. This is from the Flashes, the book Flashes, and the chapter 13th flash, and we are studying the 13th indication, and we've been studying the evil, what is evil, how it approaches us, etc. And last week we studied a interesting part with a few heated discussions. Mashallah, it was fruitful. So who wants to remind us what we studied last week? Just to give you a clue, it was about Allahu Akbar. The God is the greatest, greater. Who wants to remind us? What we studied? Okay, no volunteers? Zaydin, would you like to help us as a appointed volunteer?
Inshallah, I'll try my best. So at least one point I remember from last week is thinking about the phrase Allahu Akbar, or God is most great, in terms of like how I can confirm that statement for myself through my experiences, rather than starting from God and saying, oh, if God is most great or God is most capable, then like everything, he would be able to do everything. So rather than starting from that mindset, trying to approach this phrase from like, how can I experience this myself in my life? Because I guess the point of the deception here is trying to say that it's too, like, the concept of Tawheed, or one being controlling everything, is too big for you to even conceive of or imagine. So I guess the point is, well, don't try to imagine it, try to observe it within your experiences. Yeah, I think that was one of the takeaways that I got. And I think we also discussed, well, rather than starting from the top with God, like starting from the bottom, like doing a bottom up approach, I think we also talked about what that actually means. Instead of just instead of just reading the Quran as this rule book or this like dogma, instead trying to maybe understand it from my life and applying its principles to what I experience around me. So rather than taking it as a rule book. And yeah, I think the other part of that was just reading things and from like my point of view and how it applies to me. I think that is what I will remember from last week.
Okay, Jazakallah.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Since she made a great opening, or maybe some. Okay, please.
So, maybe what last week's discussion was not about.
Not about. Okay.
So, like when something happens, like a question, some bad event happens, and we say, God is great, God is greater or most great, as it's said in here. Especially if I am brought up in a Muslim environment and whatnot, some obstacle is before me, and I say God is capable of doing everything, so therefore he would do this as well. But since this is generally, I mean, the author said this is a correct answer. This is the answer, actually. But what we were studying last week was this is the answer for a reason. It's not an answer, a memorized answer for any question, or it's not like a top-down saying, I am imagining an so powerful of a God, so I guess he would be able to do this as well. It's not that sort of an attitude, but it's saying that whomever is doing this, observing my life, whomever is raising this baby, this child over there from whatever she's eating today, or the air that she's breathing, must be capable of really turning the sun, the earth, all the galaxies and everything. So he must be so great that he does all these. But the answer then, that means Allahu Akbar. The one who does this must be greater than anything. And literally the word Allahu Akbar means is greater, actually, because he is greater than anything I can imagine. So this is the point. This is why they translate it as the most great, since he is greater than anything, generally translated as the most great.
Jazakallah khairan, very good point, which made it clear to me maybe for the first time about this greater part. So we usually, as you said, take it as it's greater, and grammatically speaking, because the object, the comparison object is not there, so you can take it as greater than everything. But maybe one thing that we usually miss, to say something is greater, you need to start something smaller. Like you need to observe something and then say that he's greater than this. So you always have to start with an observation. In your life, there is something, an obstacle maybe, a difficulty. You observe this, you experience it, and then you say, whoever does this or that must be bigger than, greater than this. Okay, Jazakallah khairan, mashallah. So the second part was, I mean, it's not the second part, but the explanation would go in the previous week's discussion. You would say, I mean, if you look and if you study the creation, you will end up with two possibilities anyway. The one possibility, one way, he says, the author, for those who are joining us for the first time, we are following the text, what is the word? Writings of a scholar, Imam Said Nursi. The author, Imam Nursi, he says, if you look at the creation, you will end up with two ways. One is looking at it and realizing that whoever is making this, bringing this to existence, must have a all-knowing, must be the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-merciful. That's the first way, this conclusion you arrive. The second way, he says, or you have to attribute these all-knowing, all-powerful qualities to every single thing in the creation. Right? He mentioned this, and there was a discussion there. So Natalia gave a beautiful example. She said, or if you look at these companies, for instance, it was you, right? Yeah. If you look at the companies, we see that nobody knows everything. Everybody only knows a tiny part of it. But we see that the company is working fine. So, I mean, we can do the same thing with the creation as well. Every tiny thing in the creation only knows a tiny amount of thing, and powerful only in a tiny manner, and everything goes well. So interestingly enough, the day after our discussion last week, I was talking to some other friends, and the same example came from that friend. Not in terms of the company, but he was giving another example, like let's say a cell in the human body, different parts knowing only their share. And he gave the example, I mean, imagine a tube, right? The food coming through the tube. There are one entry on the left side, one entry on the right side, and the left side only knows how much it should take inside to fit the left side, and the right side only knows how much take to fit the right side, right? And I said, okay, alhamdulillah, that means our discussions the day before was actually for him. Anyway, I like to, to bring this example again. And I remember our kids were distracting people at the very moment, so we couldn't study it a lot. Don't worry, I punished Huda after the discussion. But yeah. So let's talk about this example, because that kind of examples always occupies our minds when we say, whoever makes this must be all knowing. And the idea is you look at everything in creation and see how they relate to everything else in the rest of the creation, right? There is this complex interconnectedness. You see, we're studying the same example, and then kids, again, there's something about the example. This complex interconnectedness in the creation, right, demands this, we say. But then a part of our mind says, oh, but look at the examples. And they don't know everything, but still it's going well. Does anybody remember how we approached this example or this type of examples last week? I know that it was very distracting at the moment. Anyone was here? Okay. Working for the company, so that's the reason he was not here. So yeah, in a company, Arsalan, we were saying everybody knows only a tiny, the share, tiny part of the entire system of knowledge, whatever you call it. Sorry? Stocks, okay. And still it works well. So our arguments for whoever made this company work must be all-knowing fail there. Anyone? Yusuf, please.
So just to reiterate the point, the idea was the example that I gave with a baby, for example. I said, whomever is making this baby must be the one who is dealing with the sun and the moon and the galaxies and everything, which means an all-knowledgeable, all-powerful one. But the alternative suggestion is, no, not necessarily. Baby is governing itself and only knows what it means to be a baby. A tree knows what it means. It just knows how to produce oxygen. That's all it does. It doesn't care about more or less. It's just an expert of producing oxygen, period. So why don't you say this to be the case? Because author was saying that there are two possibilities. Either there must exist one maker who does everything, who is all knowledgeable, or everything is all knowing. Everything is all knowledgeable, all powerful. All the moms are running. Some emergency with the kids. So there is no third option in between. But then the question came, maybe there's a third option, which is they only have partial knowledge, just as in our human society. I only know a little bit of how to do computer science. Somebody knows how to do bread. Somebody knows how to do a plane. And we are living in somewhat of a harmony. And the civilization is flourishing. Why not? That we cannot say this to be the case for the universe that we are experiencing. This was the question.
Okay, let's start then, since nobody wants to speak. The way, we approach, last week we tried to approach, is that instead of taking this as an counter argument, actually, we said we can even take it as a supporting evidence, supporting argument, that there must be someone all-knowing, all-powerful. And it goes like the company is not an exceptional example. Like we see this everywhere, right? Wherever you look, you see as if everybody only knows a tiny amount of things that they are responsible, but still the system works. It goes with the university. Even if you go to a supermarket, right? The butcher in the supermarket only knows how to cut the meat. The cashier knows how to do beep beep, and then the delivery guy knows how to deliver things. But when you think about it, it's not that simple. Like the important point when you come to when you try to come to a correct understanding of the creation, it's just looking a bit more carefully and see okay. The idea is just to look and see what it is there actually. With the example of supermarket, company, university, or your human body, doesn't matter, the same thing. So you don't, for instance, bring people with just any tiny amount of knowledge. And if you want to run a super company, supermarket, for instance, you don't bring a person knowing how to use brush, and then another person have to push I don't know, rock. They just know that much. Have to push a rock, have to use a brush, have to paint a fence, right? Take these people, just knowing that amount of knowledge, tiny, and bring them together and try to run a supermarket without, instructing them in anything. Everybody knows only a tiny amount, and they come together. Do you get something as simple as supermarket? Do you get it? Like with someone know how to use a brush, another one have to push a rock, another one have to paint a fence. Can you run a supermarket? No, right? You need specific tiny amount of knowledge distributed somewhere, right? Specific amount of knowledge. So it means there is a specification. Like it sounds so technical, I apologize for that. But it means on top of this tiny amount of knowledges, there is also knowledge of what tiny amount of knowledge is required, right? So that means what I see there, it's not only this tiny amount of knowledge, but also on top of that, what tiny amount of knowledge is required. Again, what I see there is the way this knowledge, the entirety of the knowledge running a supermarket, distributed it's not also random. You don't say, you don't tell the cashier, okay, you will be a cashier, but sometimes you will go to the the butcher store, the part, and then start cutting meat. It wouldn't work that way. You have to distribute it in a way that is contained within each unit, each person, right? So what I see there on top of everything I already count, a proper way of distributing duties. Okay, so you can continue like this. You can say that, oh, okay, I also see some management science there. I also see some science of logistics, right? It is somewhere there. Like all this information, all this knowledge is in the system, right? So when somebody says everybody only knows a tiny amount and we don't need anything else, it's actually some kufr going on there. What kufr means? Covering up, right? This is exactly what is going on there. We are intentionally or unintentionally covering up that everything else that is needed there, right? With companies, universities, your body, the same goes, the same, the argument goes. And you realize there is this huge amount of knowledge that is required for this thing happen. After a moment, you realize that, okay, man, I mean, if it was just one person doing everything, it will be easier in terms of the amount of the knowledge required. It will be easier to explain what I see there. I would say this person is running and working in the registry, and then running to butcher site, and on the time going to the groceries, etc. It will be easier to explain. Now you have to explain even more. You have to say that, okay, there is this knowledge of running a supermarket. On top of that, knowledge of properly distributing the tasks. On top of that, the authority over all these parts. On top of that, these, on top of that, that, on top of that, these and that, right? So amount of knowledge is even bigger and bigger, actually. You just don't need to know how to run a supermarket, but also have to know how to properly distribute tasks, how to manage them, how to monitor them, etc. And you say there must be something, I don't know what it is, but this knowledge must be attributed to something. In our example, you say, oh, okay, there must be a manager or owner of this supermarket. There must be, even if I don't see it, you say there must be. In an example of, I don't know, university or a company, you say there must be a CEO, or there must be some architects, a founder of this company, right, who knew everything. On top of that, some science books of management, etc., etc. But this knowledge must be somewhere that I have to attribute. Okay, so what I'm trying to say, when we see a properly working system with seemingly distributed, the tasks, it is actually a bigger evidence that there must be all-knowing, all-powerful, or the authority thing or a person to explain what I see. Any comments, questions? Zero, please.
You can take.
So I guess if I understood correctly, you can't say, like, looking at how organized the system is, whatever it is, like a supermarket, you can't say that each individual or each component has that perfect knowledge in that distinct role, and so does everyone else, such that they're all just perfectly working together. Like, that has to be evidence that there is a higher knowledge that doesn't belong to each individual person, because even if it looks like they have the knowledge for their role, it isn't encompassing all the other roles. And based on the organization that I observe, there must be some knowledge that is encompassing the whole system. So it can't be any of the parts.
Exactly. That's the point. Like, there must be something other than these parts that I see. And this is the okay. Anyway. So okay. So if there is no other comments, question, oh, there is, okay.
The way that I was sort of interpreting the text and our discussion last week is, like, even if each part of the system only knows like what it's supposed to do, there needs to be some, like, each part of the system, like each individual component has to have an awareness of the entire system. And like, that's sort of how I interpreted like what the author was sort of insinuating in that part of the text. Like, even if this cup knows like how to be a cup, and that's like what its role is in the universe, there's like some sort of awareness of the entire universe inside of this cup. So that's just sort of, I don't know, just thought I'd throw that out there. I don't know if that's accurate to what you
No,
were
no,
describing.
that's very accurate actually. Alhamdulillah. Yusuf, please. Yeah.
And of course, maybe increasing examples, I don't know if it will help or not, but it's some, the author also gives another example with the what's it called?
Arc.
No, the what does the mosque has? Dome.
Dome.
Dome. So like definitely in dome there are stones that are consecutive, right next to each other. But for a dome to be a dome, you cannot simply say if this stone in the dome, if it knows just its neighbors and I just need to stay there, and as long as I know where my neighbors are, I should be good. That's not how it works, because the dome as a structure is really based on how all the stones in this dome is really properly located. So in this regard, everybody needs to be knowing what everybody does, where everybody needs to stand. And not only that, we'll need to command everybody to pause there, saying that, okay, I'm going to stop here, but everybody else, you guys are going to stop there. Yet at the same time, it's going to receive commands from everybody else. Like, is this the case with the universe? We do see this sort of a coherence, because in that example, it's a dome. But if we think about Muhammad sitting right next to me, all the particles, like he's consisting of so many particles, and even the arc of his nose is yet another dome, or his skull, like anything in this regard is really having this sort of a structure, then we will either say, just as long as this particle knows its neighbors, it's good. It's enough to make a nose. Or we will say, no, just because he just drank ayran. Like this particle was coming from elsewhere, and it's going to become tip of his nose. Like this is where now we start talking about the reality that we're experiencing. We would say either they are all extremely knowledgeable, they know everything, they have control over everything, every single particle, or we would say they have none. Like there's no middle ground in between.
Should we continue then with the second point of the 13th indication? This is a very good one, short and good one. So who is good with reading short text? Muhammad Sian? Okay, let's go. With your most beautiful voice, inshallah.
Second point. Another of Satan's cunning wiles is to prevent man admitting his faults in order to close up the way of seeking forgiveness and taking refuge with God. He also incites the egotism of the human soul, so that the soul defends itself like a lawyer, quite simply acquitting itself of all fault. Yes, a soul that listens to Satan does not want to see its own faults. Even if it does see them, it explains them away in 100 ways. According to the saying, the eye of contentment is blind to faults. When a person looks with pleasure on his soul, he does not see its errors.
Maybe a little bit higher, just a bit.
You chose me, okay? And because he does not see them, let me go back to the beginning of the quote. The eye of contentment is blind to faults. When a person looks with pleasure on his soul, he does not see its errors. And because he does not see them, he does not admit to them or seek forgiveness, or seek refuge with God from them. So becomes the plaything of Satan. How can the soul be relied on when a noble prophet like Joseph ﷺ said, "Nor do I absolve my own self of blame. The human soul is certainly prone to evil, unless my sustainer do bestow his mercy." The person who accuses his soul sees its faults, and he who admits his faults seeks forgiveness for them, and he who seeks forgiveness takes refuge with God, and he who takes refuge with God is saved from Satan's evil. Not to see one's faults is a greater fault than the first fault, and not to admit to one's faults is a serious defect. If one sees the fault, it ceases to be a fault. If one admits it, one becomes worthy of forgiveness.
Who wants to start? Okay, Natalia, please.
I think just to open it up, it's like it is very beautiful, right? To show for Allah to show us His mercy, in the way of us being able to notice our faults, right? Like we're here to know Him, we're here to get closer to Him, and a lot of what He wants us to learn is learned through faults, through committing mistakes, and if we weren't able to admit that, then it would be much harder to learn. So I guess this text to me is like portraying that I guess beauty, that's not a good word, but portraying this good in being able to admit one's faults, detach ourselves from our egotistic soul and being able to learn from it as opposed to covering it up.
Jazakallah khairan. I totally agree. I think it is beautiful. The experience that we have, being able to realize our faults, and through that, getting closer to mercy. Zeren, please go ahead.
I guess one thing that I was reminded of from this is that it felt very relevant to me because I do, even when I'm like thinking something or if I've said something bad, I do feel this resistance, I guess, in myself or wanting to try and justify what I've said or what I thought. Like, oh, maybe like if you twist it in this way, like I could actually be right about this. So I guess this kind of speaks to me in that, like, even if I am not like aware of it, like I do feel aware of what I'm saying. Like sometimes this like resistance does come into play. And I guess that reminds me of the importance of seeking refuge, because even if I do my best to try and avoid it, like I feel like it's still something that I experience on a day-to-day basis, especially like in conversations with other people. I'm always like, oh, did I say a bad thing, or did I do something that could be construed this way? And I feel like there's just a lot of like whispers in my head in that regard. So I thought this section kind of hit home for me in that sense, where there is something in me that keeps wanting to explain the things that I shouldn't be doing.
Jazakallah khairan. And also, author says, he used the word explaining, right? At least in the translation. Where is it? Even if it does see them, it explains them away in 100 ways. That's the, I guess, the test of the people who can use their, the reasoning and the language capabilities more than others. That's usually their tests in this life. Anyone? Yusuf, please.
So, like what sort of mistakes is author talking about in here is another question that comes to mind. Because we were like, this is the end of the topic, and in the topic we talked about good things, bad things that come out of our hands. We said the good that comes out of human's hand is human doesn't have anything to be boastful about it, because the creator suggested you the let's say doing good, and he gave the power for you to do the good. Like he created, pretty much, not even gave the power, but he created the output. So there's nothing for you to be boastful about. But when he was saying from the very beginning, if we go back, he said evil is really non-existence, based in non-existence. So now we are talking about mistakes. We are talking about evils that are coming out of our hands. And so in this regard, some evil comes out of my hand, but I am coming up with excuses for it. Like this is what's being suggested in here. Since he's using the terminology of Satan, let's go back to Satan's story. Because when it's outside, it's easier to see. This is why Quran is giving us the example of Satan to show us the example from outside. So Satan was being invited, like he's suggested to do something, like an existence came to him saying that prostrate to this human being. And Satan rejected this. Like it's in perfect alignment. When we talk something, kids come in. Okay, kids, go upstairs. Kids, go upstairs. Okay, let's wait.
Hear parents' voice.
Okay, I see.
Muhammad Siyah would be very likely, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
children would not hear him.
I can admit my own fault.
see. So actually this example of Satan in Quran is perfectly fitting the description so far. So Satan was suggested to appreciate the beauty that is manifested on human being. So Creator says, I created this human being whom I taught something, and I would like you to appreciate it. Satan says, no. So this is a rejection, which responsibility is now going to lie on the one who rejects something. You don't need to put anything forth. You're just denying it. You're rejecting it. But then how does Satan come up with an excuse for this mistake? So multiple ways. He first says, why should I have, like he's reasoning and saying that, why should I have prostrated in the first place? Like this is number one excuse Satan comes up with, saying that what you suggested was wrong in the first place. This is what that means. Because I am better than him, you made me, again, putting the blame on the Creator. You made me out of fire, made him out of clay, therefore I am better. Why would I prostrate? So this was the number one excuse that Satan put forth. The second excuse Satan put forth in chapter 2 of his story is saying that since you misguided me, to the Creator, he says, I'm going to sit before those human beings' path, will come from left and right, front and back. I will try to just misguide them. This was Satan's attitude. So it's again now trying to take revenge, sort of. Sometimes I have students in class, like there's a certain student type. I'm teaching the content just to make them be clear about topic. I sometimes ask tricky questions. Intentionally, a tricky question I'm asking them. And this annoying student type, since he is thinking too high of themselves, he just jumps on it and gives the wrong answer. And then I say, haha, I caught you. And then the student, rather than saying, oh, I made a mistake, the student says, you asked the question in a tricky way. And of course I did ask it in a tricky way so that you learn something. But rather than blaming me, if student knows what it means to be a student would say that, oh, the purpose of this altercation was so that I learned something. And yet clearly I chose the wrong answer. Yes, it was staged in a way, but I was supposed to admit my mistake, because the mistake was staged so that I learned something out of it. So the bigger mistake is student not admitting, yet blaming the teacher, saying that, oh, you misguided me to give this wrong answer. So this is being the satanic vial in there. And if I come back to myself, then in this life, I do make choices. Sometimes the choices are being, like the question is being set so that I am likely to make a mistake. Human is prone to that. As we were having this conversation with the student last week, student said that, oh, I am afraid of making choices then. But this is not the point. Sometimes really the questions are being asked so that you're likely to make a mistake. Still, don't try to deliberately make mistakes. This is not the point. But you will make a wrong choice. But if you're aware of what it means to be a student, you should say that, oh yeah, I could have been careful. I am wrong, but this was the point. Now I am repenting to fix that mistake. This is why satanic attitude versus Adamic attitude. Adam is being exemplified, given as example for us. Adam says, I wronged myself. And then this is why he is being shown as an example. Satan says, no, you tricked me. And then he goes down. So this is where we now need to locate ourselves. What is my purpose in here? Am I competing with the teacher to show off I know better than the teacher, or in this classroom, I am the one who is trying to learn. If this is the case, then I wouldn't try to get into an ego war with the teacher. I would say, yeah, you're right, I was wrong. And thank you for asking the question from such a lens. Now I got it, and thank you. I would say thank you rather than blaming.
Jazakallah khairan. So we're continuing from where you left. Then what makes it Adam in this story, in the Quranic narration, worthy of being narrated through generations? Not the fact that he learned something very well, but the fact that he admitted his fault. He's being faulty in that sense, I mean, quote unquote. And through this, being close to its maker makes him valuable, which also goes in parallel with the narration. Prophet ﷺ, when companions ask him about the mistakes they make, they say, you know, we keep doing the mistakes all the time, especially when we are far from you, not within your company. He says, if you were not to make any mistakes, the Creator would destroy you and then put another nation who would make mistakes. Okay? So that's what a human being valuable, according to this narration. And to me, this is extremely, with Natalia's word, beautiful, elegant. So to maybe better appreciate what is being said in the text, let's look at some alternatives. In modern, the human psychology, one school of thought, for instance, take the guilt as a unhealthy feeling, right? Having the guilt is unhealthy. Okay? So why? Because you should just accept what is happening, what is in front of you. You made something against the expectations, for instance, and that's it. You made it. You made against expectation. Like you made something against the expectation. You acted against expectations. You were supposed to do your homework. You didn't do your homework, and that's the state. And just acknowledge it. Why you should feel guilty, right? That's the idea. What having the feeling of guilt will contribute to you? Like what would be its utility? And if you cannot overcome this feeling of guilt, it will also prevent you to take further steps, right? Okay, if you want to call it as a failure, call it failure, but you have to concentrate on what is next. And having the feeling of guilt will prevent you from focusing on what is next. This is one way of looking at things. And within its, I would say, context, makes sense. Like when you have guilt, if it doesn't have any utility, why you should have guilt? It's just a glitch in the system. And you hope that by further evolution, in a few million years, you will not have it. So you will see this almost everywhere, right? Just little to give some attention to your interactions with the friends, with your family. You will hear this like, I will not blame myself. I will not, or you cannot, I don't know, I'm short of words, I apologize. But it's like creating a defense system, protecting yourself from any attack. And when you make a mistake, if somebody reminds you about this mistake, it's like an attack, and you should protect yourself. Right? You will see this everywhere. not admitting in Zerin's inner world, for instance, right? As she just mentioned, right? The same goes with me as well. We are afraid to admit our guilt. Why? Because we don't know what to do with it. If I keep telling myself that I make mistake, I make mistake, I make mistake, I become worthless, a piece of useless thing. That's what I become. So prevent this, we just cover our guilts. But the author says, and Quran explains us, this the feeling of guilt is so powerful, so beautiful, that you should, instead of covering it, just listen to it. What it tells you. It reminds you your shortcomings. You thought you were powerful. I'm so clever, I can do this homework anytime I want. I don't even have to hurry. I just will, sleep a few hours more, and I will wake up earlier, and I will do it. And you didn't wake up, right? You couldn't even eat your breakfast properly. You run to your classroom and no homework. This feeling of guilt, first of all, reminds you of your shortcomings. That you are such a needy person who cannot do anything if it lets to you, right? It reminds you first. And then it doesn't stop there, though. It also reminds you, yes, I'm power. I mean, I don't have any power. I don't have any, the foresight. But all these years, everything works nicely for me so far. It also reminds you that. From there, you say, okay, there must be someone else, something else other than me. Because I'm not even able to wake up early. There must be someone who's been taking care of me all these years. Okay? Now your focus changes from yourself to the one who takes care of you. As the author says, it gets you closer to your problem, to your creator. And also repentance. When you do something wrong, and when you have this feeling of guilt, right, you are in a mood of like a repentance. You are ready to admit your fault. And you knock the door of your creator, the creator of this feeling, the one who been taking care of you all these years, and you repent. A moment ago, you were just living your life, ignorant of almost everything about yourself, who's taking care of you. But with this fault and the feeling of guilt, now you know about yourself, your reality, the one who's been taking care of you, and you are knocking his door to repent. I mean, before, after, you are in a much better position right now. You are now in a dialogue with the all-merciful one who's been taking care of you. So this guilt actually exposes you to what? To mercy. Reminds you all this mercy that you've been treated with all these years. And you say to the all-merciful one, I made a mistake. I admit it. Forgive me as you forgiven me before. So now you're building a relationship with something that you can rely on. So these psychologists, they are right. If you try to rely on yourself, you will fail. So it's better not to have this feeling of guilt. But if it takes you to something that you truly can rely on, you can truly trust, and this relationship is a beneficial one for you, then you appreciate the creation of this guilt in you. You say, this is a beautiful creation. Whoever created this feeling, I didn't. If it was me, I would get rid of it, right? Whoever created this feeling in me made a great service, great thing to me. And you just appreciate it. Any other comments, questions? If not, we can even read the third point, maybe. Okay.
I mean, not a comment, but just to, if you don't mind, can I reread the last paragraph?
Please.
So, actually, so the person who accuses his soul sees its faults, and he who admits his faults seeks forgiveness for them. And he who seeks forgiveness takes refuge with God, and he who takes refuge with God is saved from Satan's evil. So it's like it all starts with accusing the self rather than defending the self. So this is where the distinction started. And it's seeking refuge leads us to like admitting leads us to seeking refuge takes us to receiving forgiveness, seeking forgiveness. So this beautiful relationship that you were mentioning is all started with admitting my faults, or even admitting my faults started with accusing myself rather than defending myself. And eventually it made me it's pretty much like either I am in claiming to be this independent entity versus admitting that I am a servant, I am a needy servant of my creator. And if we think about this right after the first point, there the answer was Allahu Akbar. So when I am defending myself, I am saying I am great. And how to spoil this? To spoil this attitude is, again, the answer is Allahu Akbar. Like, my creator is the greater one. So in this regard, it is the exact opposite. Like in the first one, how Satan was saying that, I mean, it can't be that God is taking care of everything all at the same time. Like this was the feeling, the attitude in the previous one. Actually, it is pretty much very similar, if not the same, to say that I am faultless. I don't want to admit my mistakes. Actually, I am great. These two topics are, one is in the outside world, the other one is in my personal inner world. So again, the answer is the same. Allahu Akbar is the way to spoil this attitude of human self, human nafs, which wants to defend itself like lawyer. No, I'm accusing myself because I am needy. I am not great. He is greater.
Jazakallah. This is also like following the same path. We can also complete the circle. We started with this 13th flash with what? A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim, right? We started, that was the, like the entire 13 flash is the tafsir of this phrase. We said, seeking refuge to God from the evil doings of Satan. And now he says, so this is the picture. Evil whispers, these terrible things. We follow them. We make mistakes. And we blame ourselves. We accuse our soul, our nafs, ourselves. And seek refuge through God. So there was a question a few weeks ago. I mean, if everything, all these, the Satan is being created by God, all these whispers are being created, why I should, take any responsibility of any of my wrongdoings, right? Now he says, taking responsibility in your wrongdoing is in your benefit. So that's the whole idea. Everything is created in this way so that you take refuge and get closer to your Creator. Get closer to the source of the mercy. Then you say, whoever created all these mistakes in front of me that I choose, whoever creates all these whispers, right, so that I can make mistakes, whoever creates me in a situation in which I make mistake, and then whoever then put this feeling in me of guilt, I'm so thankful, because the end goal, like an output of this entire pipeline, entire thing, that I'm getting closer to the mercy. So a human being's ability, and I'm highlighting this, ability to make mistake, is her the biggest value in that sense. You go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to repeat my example in this regard just to highlight it since I liked it too much. So
Mashallah.
that student type that I mentioned, the annoying student, and even when I mentioned the face of the student comes to my mind, like really the student's attitude is to compete with the teacher to show the class that the student is trying to show that I am smarter than the teacher. I know more than the teacher. And when the teacher asks this tricky question to teach something to the class and also to that student gets super annoyed because now it's clear that he's not smart. Like his defect is demonstrated to the class because by creation, his defect, like otherwise he wouldn't be in the classroom learning. He would have been a teacher teaching, right? Like relative to the
No, it's just funny. Yeah.
So, but the student is getting into competition and saying that you tricked me, teacher. Like, it really sounds super funny, but this is our reality. We are created in this. If I check for myself, I am here. I am born like a baby, knows nothing. I am here to learn. Then I start getting into competition with my teacher, with my creator. And as the teacher puts questions before me, sometimes tricky questions, and I fall for them, although he teaches me the right answer as well. But because I'm not that careful by design, if you like, then I make a mistake and then I turn my finger back at the teacher and say that you tricked me, so you're responsible for putting me in this condition. Like you're missing the whole point, man. Like wake up. But I guess this is where we are.
Okay, Jazakallah. Okay, any final comments, remarks about this point? Otherwise, I will suggest reading the third point and maybe finish this topic today. We all fed up with the current moderation, so maybe we should start a new topic and new moderator. Okay, let's read the third point. This is slightly longer, so we need someone with a stronger voice. Maybe from ladies' side. Anyone who was no, let's not make it competition in house. Natalia, would you like to read it for us? Jazakallah.
Third point. A satanic wile corrupting the life of society is this. It is not to see all the virtues of a believer on account of a single bad point. Those unjust people who heed this wile of Satan's are inimical to believers in that way. However, when Almighty God weighs up deeds with absolute justice on the supreme scales at the last judgment, he will judge in accordance with the predominance of good deeds over evils and vice versa. And since the causes of evil deeds are numerous and their existence is easy, sometimes he veils many bad deeds with a single good deed. That is to say, dealings in this world should be in accordance with that divine justice. If a person's good points are greater in regard to quality or quantity than his bad points, the man is deserving of love and respect. Indeed, one should forgive numerous bad points on account of a single valuable virtue. However, due to the vein of tyranny in his nature and through the promptings of Satan, man forgets the 100 virtues of a person because of a single bad point, is hostile towards his believing brother, and commits sins. Like a fly's wing covering the eye conceals a mountain, so too do the veil of hatred. Man conceals virtues as great as a mountain due to one evil like a fly's wing. He forgets them, is hostile towards his believer brother, and becomes a tool of corruption in the life of society. Through another while resembling this one, sin corrupts the wholeness of people's thoughts. He destroys sound judgment concerning the truths of belief and damages integrity and correctness of thought. It is like this. He wants to destroy hundreds of evidences proving the truths of belief through a slight hint refuting them. Whereas it is an established principle that a single proof is superior to 100 denials. The statement of a witness proving a claim is preferable to 100 people denying it. Consider this truth by means of the following comparison. There is a palace with 100 doors all closed. On one of its doors being opened, the palace may be entered and the other doors opened. If all the doors are open and one or two are closed, it may not be said that the palace cannot be entered. Thus, the truths of belief are the palace. Each evidence is a key. It proves the truths and opens the door. If one of the doors remains closed, the truths of belief cannot be abandoned and denied. Satan, however, as a consequence of certain things or by means of heedlessness or ignorance, points out a door that has remained closed, thus causing a person to disregard all the positive evidences, saying, "See, this palace cannot be entered. Perhaps it is not a palace and there is nothing inside it." He deceives the person. O wretched man afflicted by the wiles of Satan, if you want the life of religion and of society and personal life all to be healthy, and if you want integrity of thought, a sound view, and a sincere heart, weigh up your actions and thoughts on the scales of the incontestable matters of the Quran and the balance of the practices of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Always take the Quran and the practices of your guide. Say, "I take refuge with God from Satan the accursed, and seek refuge with God Almighty." And so, the above 13 indications and 13 keys, use them to open the door of the fortified stronghold of the surah. Can I read it? Say, "I seek refuge with the Lord and cherisher of mankind, the ruler of mankind, the God of mankind, from the mischief of the whisperer of evil, who withdraws after his whisper, the same who whispers into the hearts of mankind, among jinns and among men. Enter the secure citadel and find safety. Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise." And say, "O my sustainer, I seek refuge with you from the whisperings of the evil ones, and I seek refuge with you, my sustainer, lest they should come near me."
MashaAllah, everybody was able to hear. Okay, let's quickly study, inshallah. Any initial thoughts? Yazarın, please. This is today, it's her confession session.
Quite appropriate, right? So I was actually genuinely curious about this, like seeing these 2 points side by side. it's interesting to me where we're saying that like it's better, like the one who admits his faults like is closer, has a way of getting closer to the one who is merciful and can take refuge with God. But then I guess in society we want to cover those faults. I guess couldn't you say that if we point out a fault, this sounds so bad, but if we point out a fault in someone else, wouldn't that prompt them to also be critical of themselves? Like, it's interesting where we're in one case with ourselves, we're trying to like admit it and expose it, and then on the societal level, we're trying to, I guess, cover it up, which I mean makes sense in a way, but it's just like interesting to think about, because I guess why couldn't the same be true for myself? I guess in a way, if the truths of belief are this palace, couldn't I apply that same analogy to myself? Or if a couple of doors are closed within myself, like I have a few faults, but that doesn't mean the rest is like bad, like the entire palace is closed, like this example. I guess it's interesting, this difference in like talking about my faults versus the faults of like a fellow believer. Yeah, it sounds very insincere a little bit, but I do recall things like that we learned too, like having a positive like opinion of other people and covering the faults of our brothers. It does sound like good to me, but at the same time, looking at this reasoning, it feels like, why are we covering up for ourselves but not for, or why are we not covering ourselves but we are for other people? Yes.
Very, very good point. You guys good there? Everything okay? Okay, mashallah. Yusuf, please go ahead. The question is, so in the previous point, we said the guilt is something very healthy. You shouldn't cover your faults, but instead you should take refuge. You should admit your faults and take refuge. Seek forgiveness. That was the second point. And now in the third point, he says, when you see a fault in your fellow Muslim, the brother or sister, you should cover it, forgive it, and concentrate on the good deeds. Is there any contradiction between the two, she says, right? I mean, yeah.
I guess I didn't think there is contradiction, because like when you're admitting your faults, you don't have to go announce it to everyone. It's not like I have to be like, hi guys, I apologize, but I've done so many wrongs today, etc. Like I don't have to do that. Admitting simply means like for my sake. In fact, if you go announce it, is it so that you feel better about it now? Or is it just enough that you yourself admit it to yourself? So for the same reason, when you try to point somebody else's fault out, what is it actually gaining? Like, what is the ultimate intention behind that? Because if the goal is, you think maybe when you actually first that example, I was thinking of like in the science side of things, where like stigma is great because that means you won't engage in this thing we don't want. Like this is often what we say, but then in this case, the rahma part is missing because you don't know what else is good that's happening that person is doing. So maybe to the degree that you can cover because ultimately, like, pointing it out, does it harm or does it help? And also, is there a proper way to do it? Because I feel like this is so situation based. If you can talk to a person to the side, then sure, you can do that. But announcing it to in front of everyone, depending on the situation, I don't know how beneficial it is for you or for that person. So I think that's why maybe it's saying cover, because I'm not quite sure what purpose it would serve. I'm still focused on the intention of like why I would ever go and announce somebody's like so and so did this. Like I don't know what benefit that would have other than me gossiping, I guess. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I agree. Also, I think that there isn't a contradiction also in the sense that first, like in the text, it started with before being able to admit your faults, you have to recognize your faults. And so you're recognizing your faults, but also being able to see faults in others helps you to recognize your own faults. Also the other way around, recognizing your faults helps you see that in others, and experiencing the guilt and the shame also in yourself when you do admit your faults, at least to yourself. It also helps you to cover others and interact with others with the empathy, with recognizing that, okay, well, admitting my fault comes with guilt and it comes with shame. It does also for them too. So maybe I shouldn't point it out. Maybe pointing it out is not the reason why I am recognizing them, but the reason why I'm recognizing them is so that I can continue to deal with them in love and respect. Like he mentioned in the text, I feel like that's kind of I think recognizing the faults in others is not it's not the point. I think the point is that I think what I'm getting from the text is you recognize that someone has a fault amidst a bunch of other good qualities. You don't throw them away because of the fault, right? Just like you, even in yourself, when you admit your faults, you're not throwing your whole self away and wallowing in your guilt and in your shame and all your faults and feeling so melancholic about it. No, you experience the guilt and you like Brother Birkan said, you move on from it in the way that is beneficial to you. Same thing with the others. And I feel like it's just a circle of of accepting faults and not throwing each other away because of them, and using the guilt and the shame that you experience to interact with others more empathetically, I guess.
Yusuf, yeah.
So that's for So actually finding mistakes on others is another way to cleanse myself. I mean, this is one of the reasons that I would say, oh, look the way Birkan is sitting. Look how he is treating his daughter. Like in this way, I am in a sense saying that I don't do as such, I am good. Like this generally is at least in me, main motivation for finding mistakes in others. So much so that and it generally happens the way author is mentioning in here. It's not that I am saying Birkan is a great person elsewhere, but in his life, these tiny things, come on, Birkan, how dare you do this? It's not generally being the attitude. Like the best among the people, I find a minute mistake in them. I make it so big that, and I don't do this minute mistake in my life, let's say. I say, see, this people which they think is so high makes this mistake, which I don't do. So I am better than that person. Like this is a way of self-gratification, actually. Like there was a absurd example that I encountered at some point. Some scholarly person, because of old age, made a humanly mistake. And it's not by choice. The person was old. And then I heard somebody saying that, well, what sort of a scholar is this, like doing it this way? And it was just an act of old age, the way that the person is using, forgive my language, but just how he used restroom. But it was just because of an old age. But I realized that the attitude of that criticism was to say that this person who you guys consider so high is not even using restroom properly. I am better than that person. So it's a follow-up to the previous one, actually. Self-defense, praising myself. Another flavor of praising myself is lowering the others by using the minutest mistake of other people out there. But also, I mean, this is one part of it. The second part of it is, because the author is saying that cover up their sins in a sense with their good deeds. Let's put this into the context of this discussion, the whole discussion. The good things are not really being attributed to the person themselves. It is a beautiful creation of the creator. Let's say you see some good act, good character in a person, but by covering this good character by a small mistake, what am I doing? I am really butchering or murdering the creator's beautiful manifestation of names in there in exchange of this small mistake. So the author is saying that, no, you should do the other way around. Just be forgiving for the small mistake that this person went through, which belongs to them, correct? But this person is there so that you're going to see many beautiful names being manifested there. In a sense, I am harming myself by taking the attitude that Satan is suggesting here. Because I'm not able to see the good aspects, the good character, the mercy, the knowledge, the wisdom of the creator that is being manifested in that person. But I'm abusing this person for my self-gratification, erroneously saying that, oh, even such a highly regarded person is so low. So it's such a trick. But then very beautifully, author is taking it from there and saying that this egocentric attitude of yours has another outcome. When it comes to matters of belief, you do the same as well. A whisper comes about a matter of iman. Although there are thousands of proofs about it, this whisper says, oh, really? Is it? Maybe not all of them has to know everything. Like just some possibility of something. Well, that's not how it's happening in companies. Like something then pops up and I might fall for it because of the same attitude. And I find myself to be doing the first mistake. So author is saying that be careful. When the same attitude applies to matters of belief, the tiniest, not even evidence, whisper, a doubt, a whisper, like a professor comes and says, oh, in the lab we did such and such experiment and we were able to, I don't know, clone a sheep or something. Oh, I thought God is the giver of life. Now they're claiming they're the giver of life. God does not exist. Is this what that means? Like a whisper comes. And since the person is talking with the authority of science, all the evidences that I have observed and experienced jumps out of the window. So he says it's your dhulm, your transgression towards your believer friend in your personal life. This is how it applies to belief matters eventually. They are not distinct. So that character is going to apply there as such.
I think, okay, so going back to the paragraph we read actually before that, where the author states that the eye of contentment is blind to faults, that implies that we're actually, if to the degree that we are trying to find faults within ourselves, we're bound to see the same fault within other people to sometimes like appease our own, maybe like to feel better about that whole situation. So then I guess there's no way to not notice somebody else's faults because you're trying to notice your own fault. So by default, it reflects elsewhere. So then is the goal to remember that this is just a reflection of you rather than maybe the person? I guess like what would be the appropriate, because it's kind of dumb to be like, no, I looked at everybody, I'm like, wow, everybody's great. But so I guess that would be a more feasible way of approaching that, would be my question.
So yes, you do see the mistake of that person, but like when it comes to your own child, for instance. When Huda makes some naughtiness during the discussion and whatnot, I would say, "Oh, Birkan, please, like, I mean, look after your child." But when Ali makes a like acts out in the discussion, I would say, "Oh, he's so cute." So
He's a boy.
he's a boy. So, I mean, yes, I do see the naughty child in there, but when it comes to this, I say, well, but he's cute. I mean, Huda is also cute, but I want to focus on the mistake part of it because I want to feel better about myself. Like, look, I'm a responsible parent or whatever, whatever. But when it comes to my child doing it, then I start finding. So the author is saying that, no, just reverse it in your own self, because it's all coming from this satanic attitude of self-worth. So just reversing it. In your case, when you see, focus on the faults, because this is what you want to escape from. If there are good things on you, we already discussed about this. The good things on you do not belong to you anyways. Like, you shouldn't be boastful about them anyways. But when it comes to the other person, again, I'm not going to say, oh, Birkan, you're like a god. You're very good. When I see the good attitudes in him, that's not the point, right? Still, I would say, MashaAllah. This is why the word MashaAllah means how well God acted. Like, how good is his job? That's what MashaAllah means. So I will be appreciating my creator when I look at the good aspects of the other person. But when I see the bad aspects in this person, what is, again, the author in here is not saying that, well, those bad things do not exist. He's just saying that you have an attitude which you will cover up his good aspects with this bad one. Just do the reverse. Don't focus on the bad aspects, because this is his business. Let him think about his mistakes. But you should be focusing on the beautiful manifestations that are being done in there. This is the part that you're expected to get lessons from, or praise your creator with, by saying MashaAllah or Alhamdulillah, all praise be to God. Not praise Birkan, but praise God for what's going on in there. So this aspect is being highlighted. Otherwise, yes, I mean, you do see mistake, sure, but just change of focus, I guess.
Can you be slightly more clear? Because I'm getting a little bit confused in terms of, I guess, the ownership. I guess in the text, what I'm reading is like, your brother, the believer, your brother that chooses right. You shouldn't, cover up all of his good deeds with his bad ones. So here I feel like there is a sense of ownership to the action, right? And then you just brought it up, right? Like, we had been discussing how the good things don't belong to us, the bad things do, right? Like, we deserve the punishment, but we don't deserve paradise, right? Like, that's what we're talking about. So, like, how can it be clear to me, more grounded? Like, am I looking at my brother doing the good thing, or what am I appreciating here, or what should I appreciate? Because again, it with the text, like what it's saying, it seems like it's I guess my brother doing it, like doing the good things. I don't know if my question is clear.
Oh, Zeren, please.
Sorry, I have another question maybe to add. I was just wondering, how should I take, because I guess seeing these faults, I do still want to improve and like try to, I don't know, fix them, or yeah, just try to not repeat those faults. So how should I take, or how should anyone take like self-improvement then in this sense? Or like, you hear the phrase being the best version. Like, I hear this a lot too in khutbahs too, especially being the best version
First
of
thing
yourself.
a Muslim should do is close their ear.
But not just in khutbas, like in a lot of settings, like this is like the motivational, like trying to get you to improve upon yourself, being the best version of yourself. So, but I feel like that approach doesn't have the same level of humility that the author is kind of bringing up in this text, where you're still, I guess you're still kind of owning part of the improvement process, like, but I still want to be better. So how should I take that?
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. I've been thinking about that aspect, and we can combine these questions together. So my understanding is, if we try to take matters as between people, we always get lost. But when we take the matters as between me and whoever is creating these things for me, in me, etc., between two of us, then things becomes clear, at least to me. So in the previous point, we said, when I do a mistake, when I find myself in a wrongful situation, and I find myself having this responsibility, the feeling of responsibility about the event, when I find myself with this feeling of guilt, right? I ask the question, what does it tells me? Because this feeling, I didn't create it. And even this, the sense of responsibility, I didn't create it. Like, I just find myself with this sense and this feeling. And I ask the question, whoever put this must be telling me something, and I should understand it. And in the second point, we said, okay, the message is seeking refuge, right? Knocking the door and getting closer to the source of the mercy, the forgiveness, right? This feeling is a call for you, if you can take it, a call for mercy. Whoever put it there says, I'm the most merciful one. You are the most needy one. I'm just reminding you that. Come to me, taste the mercy, and have the joy. This is what this feeling tells me. In this second point now, the third point, again, we shouldn't take it as somebody has good qualities, somebody has bad qualities. Should we concentrate on the good qualities of this person or not? But rather, again, I ask the same question. I find myself in a situation, I look at him, right? I see all these beautiful manifestations, but at the same time, I see some faults with him, in him, right? And I have this feeling, some whispers telling me, look at this fault, some other feelings telling me that, look at these beautiful manifestations manifested there, the qualities manifested there. And I ask the same question. Whoever put these feelings, these question marks in my mind, the situation, created the situation in front of me, what is the message I should take out of this? An author says here, one message is actually reminding you the forgiveness. The forgiveness that you need a lot when you look at him and see this fault, and this, the idea of forgiving him is created in you. You say, whoever created this idea in me must be the one who is the most forgiving one, right? And you forgive your companion, your friend, your brother, sister, whatever, not because it is good for society, good for your relationship, etc., but as a practice of this forgiveness. It reminds you that the one who created all this, the one who forgives. And you say, okay, I need forgiveness, first and foremost. I'm the one who needs forgiveness most. Now I'm practicing that the one who creates me is the one who forgives. So it's always about you and your creator. The same way the Sister Zarin's comment, if you don't mind, could you remind just the gist of it? I'm sure people
I guess
just like myself.
just how to take like self-improvement if if we want we can admit the faults, but we still want to be better. So
so the same way, like if you take it as about ourselves, like even the idea of self-improvement, like you're improving what? Like how can you improve something? Okay? But if you take it as you and whoever created you in this situation, and what is the message? You take it as, with every step, I'm getting closer. If you want to call it as an improvement, you can call it as improvement, I don't know. But what happens with every seeking refuge, with every blaming yourself, with every action of you forgiving your friends, you're getting closer to the one who's been taking care of you, who's been forgiving you, who's been treating you with mercy. So there's no ownership in any of these. It's always about you, the needy one, and the one who provides.
Just continuing with what you're saying about changing your perspective to seeing that Allah, the creator, has put a situation or a person. You can even look beyond the person, say maybe a characteristic, an action that to you produces some kind of feeling, a response. So maybe that response in your heart might be like, I actually detest what I'm seeing right now. I really like it. It bothers you in some sort of way, and so you look at it. Like one aspect is to look at it and say, okay, do I have enough mercy in me to forgive that person and to overlook that? I think another level of it could be also thinking back. Okay, well, why did Allah put this characteristic or this action in front of me? Similar to when we see like an injustice, or when we read from the Quran these examples of people who had many of these bad characteristics, we can ask ourselves, why are they put in front of us? Why are these actions put in front of us? We can also see that Allah is giving me this message of, this is something that it doesn't sit well in my heart. It's something that I don't like. So we can reflect on that in the same way of like, do I have any of this within me? What I'm detesting, is that actually something that I myself need to recognize as my own error, as a shortcoming I have? I can give a personal example. One time I was praying in the masjid, and a person next to me, he was, like he was shaking a lot, and he started to do weird things with his hands, like checking his fingernails, scratching himself, moving around. And I was thinking to myself, how is this even prayer when you're that distracted? Like, what do you consider this prayer when you're doing all this stuff, moving around? Are you even in prayer at this moment? So I'm thinking about the person next to me, and then it clicked in my own mind at that same moment. Okay, well, I'm the one who's so distracted by him being distracting. But maybe maybe Allah is putting this person in front of me for me to look at my own salah and say, like, how distracted, what kind of quality of prayer do you have right now? that you're observing everybody next to you and thinking about what their shortcoming is in their prayer, when I have that same shortcoming that I'm distracted in that moment. So for me, I think the one other thing that this connects back to the second point about is when you look upon those actions, those things that create this response of maybe detesting or disliking something, you can also take it to the next level of using it as a point or a moment to reflect on yourself. Is this a shortcoming that I have? How much of this is within myself? And why has Allah created this distaste for this thing? I should be distasteful of the same thing within myself. Maybe I can only see it when it's on another person, but I can't see it within myself until it's displayed in front of me. So that's another way to take that message.
And just one tiny comment about Natalia's question. In some other part that I don't think we studied in here, or I forgot. So author was mentioning his students are saying to him, saying that, oh, teacher, before you came here, we were not having those discussions or the meanings that you're presenting to us. Now you came and we are enlightened. Therefore, we are thankful for you. Author is warning them, saying that again with this general causality idea that we have been discussing. He says, no, you are granted with, you are blessed with the questions. You have those questions in your mind. The Creator gives those questions to you and gives answers to me. Both of us are thankful to the Creator for what He is giving to us. At best, you can congratulate me, saying that, oh, mashallah, Creator gave you those answers. Congratulate me, because they're not my answers. I didn't come up with them, but they're given to me. So in this regard, don't take it as my good deeds, but it's a manifestation of the knowledge, the mercy of my Creator. So going back to what is meant by good deeds of a brother or a sister, so we would say how beautifully the Creator is creating that on that person. What that person did good was not to reject it. Because again, going back to Satan, the satanic approach is Creator is manifesting something and I'm rejecting. I don't want to show it. So in this regard, I can say, I can congratulate that brother, sister, whatever, but not praise them. So in this regard, when author is saying that cover up the good or bad with their good, meaning that just focus on what is manifesting on them rather than how did they mess up so badly. Because this is what you're supposed to be getting out of this. Just read the manifestation of the beautiful names in there.
Jazakallah. Oh, okay.
All right, so the author specifically, I guess in the third question or third point, he specifically says that we should hide the faults of the believing brothers and sisters and emphasize their good qualities. But what's left out is how we should deal with disbelievers. He specifically mentions believers. Why does he not mention disbelievers? Is it implied that we should then pick apart their characters, that we have permission to, say bad things about what they're doing and not give them, like the benefit of the doubt or whatever else?
Yeah. And this is just one the example within this context, because like my understanding is he is tying back to the belief matters in the second part of the third point. My understanding, that's the reason he's talking about the believers. Otherwise, point is not, as you nicely mentioned, is not to, when you say something bad about other people, you should just scream it and tell it in the worst way to make them ashamed. I don't think this is the point. If you follow what Mohammed said, I know it was hard to hear there from there, but he said something beautiful, mashallah. uh, like if you take anything happening to you, including an unbeliever doing something bad in front of you, I guess the question is why this thing is being created in front of me, and the feeling of dislike is being created in me about this bad attitude. What is the message for me? Because like there are two options, right? One, like if you accept that everything is created in you, is even the feeling of dislike is created in you, then you either say that, okay, the whoever created this feeling is like wants to gossip with me about this person. Bir can look at this terrible person who acts this way or that way, right? The creator is gossiping with me. Either this, or you say, as Mohammed beautifully said, he's trying to tell me something by externalizing it, showing it in like embodied by another person, as if, you know, a movie specifically created for me being played in front of me in a best way, so that I understand, right? I understand my own shortcomings. But it's so mercifully done. Instead of shouting me, oh Muhammad, or oh Birkan, you are such person who cannot even stand still during your prayer, just concentrate. Instead of giving this idea directly, it's such a merciful creation when you think about it. A movie is played in front of you. Another guy, you know, just hired, tested, being distracted during his prayer. You look at him, all this feeling is being created inside you. So this, whatever is disliked by the creator is externalized, is someone else, not you, and show you that this attitude is not liked. Now you get your message. You say, okay, it's not about them. It's about me now. There's something that I should correct with me, right? Take refuge. Correction means taking refuge, seeking forgiveness. Otherwise, not self-improvement. You seek refuge. You say, oh, Creator, I cannot even focus in my prayer. Otherwise, the solution is not that, okay, next time I will focus in my prayer. No, just admit that you cannot even focus unless He wants you to focus. Oh, Creator, who creating me in a focused manner from time to time. Right? When I need to work, when I need to earn my salary, I'm so focused, right? Forgive me that I cannot focus now. Now you are again in the at the door of the forgiving one, the merciful one. This is your lesson. This is your, let's say, the fruit you get. You can apply it to unbelievers as well. Let's finish with a beautiful comment from Fahim, inshallah.
Somebody was explaining like the concept of tarbiyah, and so this whole focusing on the qualities, whether good or bad, is if you care about that person and you want that person to grow, the quality you focus on is the quality you want that person to have the dominant quality. So if somebody focuses on negative qualities, that becomes their identity. If you keep focusing on it so much, you're like watering a plant and it becomes so big that all the other qualities become like smaller. And that's for like children too. Like everybody would have flaws, everybody would have like shortcomings. So if you can accept that they have shortcomings, I'm just going to focus and water this quality, which is, you know, so good, and that makes them like very lovable and like, you know, like beautiful in them. And you just keep focusing on that, and everything else kind of like disappears automatically over time because they mature, they grow up, and they become like more understanding of their mistakes.
Let's conclude here, inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.